All right, Kristen, welcome to the podcast. This is actually the second podcast we've done. The first one lives somewhere in infamy that we don't talk about at my old whatever I was doing. So I want to run through your quick CV. So Kristen Pucci, I got the name right because I learned it last
Yes.
time. CEO and founder of Cray Consulting, marketing guru. I like guru as a word. It's one of my favorite words. I'm going to put that in there. You got the 40 under 40. Is it a leadership board? I couldn't figure out what was that for? Was it around leadership founders? What was that exactly for?
It's just yeah, it's like a leadership management
Okay.
CEOs. All sorts of people fall under the same bucket, but it's put under Central Penn Business Journal as the top 40 people for the year under 40 years old.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty huge.
Yeah.
Like I really like that one. like
Well, I
when
also I also got the top 100. Like
yeah, your baller
I think it
status.
was like a year and a half. Well, that one shocked me because I
Why?
was on that. Well, I was on the list and everyone, not that it matters, but everyone on the list was like 20 plus years older than me. And I was like, are you sure? Are you
But
sure I'm
what
supposed to be on this list? But it's the top most powerful people in the area, the top 100 most powerful people in the area. And I'm like, oh, okay.
did those 20 older year olds have 10,000 followers on LinkedIn?
I don't think so. Probably not.
Right.
Yeah, probably not. But it
I
just
mean,
felt so cool. It just felt
of
so cool. I
course.
remember reaching out to them being like, hey, I'm on the same list as you.
How did that
The little
conversation
sister.
go?
No, it was cool. Or some even reached out to me. Some even reached out to me and they were like, hey, like, congrats. This is a big list to be on. And I had no idea that that one was coming. The 40
Hmm.
under 40, I was like, maybe. Um, and some of like the women influential stuff, but the power, that one was like shocked. And that was a cool one. That felt cool to get.
Yeah, for sure. How did that night feel? Because I'm sure there was like a whole ceremony, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's different nights for different events, but
Okay.
it was very surreal. It's a funny story. And I think I actually wrote a LinkedIn post about it years
Hmm.
ago that I used to be a big athlete. I hated school. And so sports were my thing. And I never took home an award. The high school I went to was very political and right, wrong, or indifferent. I never really took any awards home for anything related to age 1 to age 20 something. So then when I started getting these awards from this company, it was like, you know what? It's about damn time. Like it's about damn time someone
It's my turn.
recognizes that literally. And that's what I wrote the post about is I was like, it is about damn time. It is my
Hmm.
turn. Finally, not that you need outside recognition, but it felt good. It felt good for stuff that really, really matters, right? Like, of course, when you're in high school, you're like, I really want to be the top scorer. I want to hit my
Yes.
1,000 point. But when you're an adult and you're influencing people and
Hmm.
you're changing people's lives or you're being noticed for being a great manager and a great leader, that stuff's way more important. So it was cool. It was very surreal.
That's really interesting. Would you consider yourself? It's interesting because I have a similar story with sports in college, and I'm wondering
Mhm.
if you considered yourself a leader during sports time, even in maybe when you didn't agree with coaches.
Yes. So my personality has never changed. Like I came out the womb the exact way that I am now. And so what was interesting was I felt like back then I was still leader, captain of the team, things like that.
Mm.
I was definitely recognized for my leadership capability.
Okay.
And I remember like, for example, there was a coach that I didn't love, and he was kind of nasty to some of the other teammates on our team. And I remember there
Mhm.
was this one, we were about to have like the news was about to be like, showcasing this game that we were going to play.
Yeah.
And I remember he was laying into one of my players, and I started laying into him because he was laying into one of my players. Like, and the news is about to show up. And I was just so my point is I'm the same, but
Yeah.
I think then that was has always been important to me is that he was laying into this frail girl who didn't know how to stand up for herself. And I was
Mm.
like, no, you're not gonna don't talk to my player like that. Like I know I'm like realistically I work for him and she worked for me. Do you know what I mean? But I was
Yeah.
like, don't lay into my player.
Yeah.
Don't lay into my, because she was just gonna start crying. And I'm like, you can't cry, the news is coming. But
How do you
yes,
take
I
that?
definitely always had not well. Not well.
Yeah.
Not well, but I was really good. So you couldn't,
Mm. So you had the
I
upper hand on
wasn't,
that. So you knew your rope.
yeah. Yeah. Like I wasn't, I would say that I've never been like, um, disrespectful,
Sure.
but I've been straight. Yeah, I've been very honest and I've been very straight, but I'm never disrespectful. I've definitely respected authority, but you can get a certain way with me or with someone I care about and love, and I'm not going to just sit by and watch it happen.
Do you think that has caused an issue with you being a woman with being straight with other people?
Mhm,
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, AR and I have conversations. Like we've had conversations with her leadership in the past, and that's some of the things she's gone through. And it's really interesting to hear that journey, even in like, the 90s and the 80s, the things that were like not even really prevalent then, but are really prevalent now. But she had to work through that, as a woman leader. And it's so fascinating to listen to, because I
Yeah,
just can't wrap my head around some of that, obviously, for obvious reasons.
sure.
But yeah, yeah, I
Well,
can imagine it.
it's both sides too. I think like I know that when you're not too assertive, but when you have more assertive and aggressive and demanding characteristics, people can look at you a certain way. But I would also say it's the opposite as well, is that people also are making an assumption that I'm going to handle feedback poorly. I'm going to be emotional.
Mm,
There's a statement, and I was just talking about this with my team the other day. There's a statement that I think is really important that I always like to say with clients, like when we give them a new design or we write a new post. I'm like, hey, when we first start working with you, I'm not emotionally connected to what I'm writing for you. And I'm not emotionally connected. Like I have to, I literally say this exact statement. I said, I'm not emotionally connected to what I'm writing for you or what I'm designing for you. So I want to make sure that you're happy with it. So
mm.
give me direct feedback. Because if not, they tiptoe around you. They're unhappy with it. And then they're scared to bring it up to you because they're worried you're going to react a certain way. And then you find out that they want go and use somebody else, all because there's that weird dynamic.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's interesting kind of balancing the two. It's like, is she an emotional side of the female scale, or is she like the aggressive B word that they always like to throw at us sometimes? Like, which one is she going to be under? And that's really tough to navigate.
Yeah. Hmm.
Mm,
That's some deep stuff right there. Yeah, that's
deep
really
stuff.
interesting because, when you guys were helping me, like you mentioned, even Gina said multiple times, like when I gave feedback, it was just like, it was very easy. Like it's just a normal
Hmm.
relationship. And, you have someone
Yeah.
that's helping you through posts and stuff. And yeah, I don't, I don't I struggle wrapping my head around that concept with just being, it's just another part of the job. Like, what is the big deal?
Yeah. It's
Yes.
emotions and communication.
That's fascinating. I didn't know you got in the top 100, so I wish I would have known that. I would have added. I apologize for missing that, but
That's okay. No, I'm just
that's
proud of that one. That one I just think I'm
it's
proud of
amazing.
both, right?
Yeah,
But I'm very proud of that one.
you should be. That's amazing. I'm
Mhm.
sure. Did you see any relationship boosts with people that were in the group? Like, did you see like a real camaraderie of it in the sense of like you were around probably some pretty obviously some powerful people. Like, did you see advantages or boost to your career from that as well?
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm super thankful for Central Penn Business Journal. Like, right, even in it was probably my first 2 years in business. They loved writing about me. And
Hmm.
I know that sometimes, like, you can pay to play and like win awards and stuff like that with them, but some of these ones you don't. Like, they
Yeah.
genuinely are picking them. People aren't like nominating you. And I'm just so thankful that they wrote about me, I think at least 4 or 5 times, maybe over the
Wow, it's
last couple of
awesome.
years. And they were stories that they just wanted to talk about, they wanted to grab. And I think maybe I was an interesting person to write about over the last couple of years. So I'm super thankful for that, because one, SEO, it's amazing, right? You go on
Yeah,
Google
sure.
and I take over the first 3 pages when you type in Kristen Pucci, which is great, and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, it definitely was super helpful being around more influential people. That was always, I want to say strategy, but I think it's just good business. Like, you want to
Hmm.
be around influential people, and you want to be around people that are big thinkers and visionaries and accomplishing stuff in the community. And that's the group that I like to be around. So for sure, yeah. And you have a little bit of imposter syndrome before you go to meetings like that too, right? Because you're
Of
like,
course.
are you sure you meant to type my name into this? Like, was I supposed to be here?
Is this email right?
Yeah, like, am I supposed to be here? And I remember, you do get some of that too, because you're like, this
Sure.
person's like the mayor, you know what I mean? You're like, okay. But no, it really, a lot of those things definitely positively impacted my career.
Mm.
And I'm very thankful for it, for the stories that people picked up, or even the stories I created, I guess you could say,
Sure.
because it totally impacted my career, definitely.
That's amazing. Another thing I have on your CV is you're a mega dog lover. Um,
Hmm.
love the puppies, love
Mega.
the mega.
Yes, we're big dog people. We all have dogs at Cray. Most of them are rescues.
Awesome.
Um, some are not. That's okay. We still love them. Huge dog people though.
Yeah. Yeah. We ran
Always.
into that. I remember when we had a conference call about something, and I think you were out on the porch, and the dog was like, "Excuse me, like I am
Yeah.
here, and it is me time."
Yeah. They're like, here's
That's
the
awesome.
ball, drop. Or they would notice, I imagine other people's dogs probably have the same thing. They start like figuring out what you're saying. So they like know when you're about to be off a call. So my German Shepherd would be like, I'd say something like, hey, thanks so much. Like, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. And it knew the okay, bye. And she would scream in the other room, like just this howl that if anybody else has a German Shepherd, they know what I'm talking about. It's that sound like, oh my gosh, mom's done. I can get her attention now. And, it's just navigating working at home. But like, I have a sign on my front door because of the dogs, like, do not, if you want to piss me off, come ring my doorbell at noon between Monday and Friday. Try to sell me something because I'll be on a call and they don't stop barking,
Yeah.
right? They don't
Yeah.
stop. And but no, yeah, we have the dogs on the website. They're important.
It's amazing. So you
Mm-hmm.
put in the Google form, showing you can take lemons and make lemonade. So I guess career lemons and make career lemonade out of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean?
Oh, how much
I'm
time
sure
do we
there's a.
have?
Hold on, let me.
I think we might need to extend this part one, two, three, and four. Um, so how do I want to say this? I think when people meet me,
Hmm.
they get surprised that I'm 30. And I think that's because I come across much older, much wiser. Um, and I think people sometimes forget, other than those that are very in tune, how people become that way. How does
Hmm.
someone become wise, an old soul, experienced? And it's through life experience, some good and some bad. And
Sure.
so I would say that I've just had a lot of life experience at the age of 30, both good and both bad. And specifically with my career, whether or not I chose these jobs or these people or they chose me, I've had a really interesting go at positions prior to Cray. I've like you name it, I experienced it. And it definitely made me a better leader, a better manager. Like something I'm super, super passionate about is healthy work environments.
Hmm.
Not, especially not, that men don't deal with these types of things, but I've never been a guy, so I can't know what it's like for a guy.
Yeah.
But as a female, it's really difficult working in a male dominated industry, specifically construction. That's where I've been since college.
Yeah.
And we deal with a whole set of different types of adversities, and I've dealt with all of them. And I just feel like it's amazing to see how years later it makes sense why you had to go through it, because now you're dealing with it maybe with one of your employees, you're dealing with it with a client, or now you're speaking at a conference on the topic that at one period of time you thought it was going to ruin your life. And
Hmm.
that's what I think is so beautiful. When not at the time, it didn't feel too great. But now that I'm through it and now that I'm healed from it and now that I'm over it, now I have the ability to speak into somebody else that's currently dealing with it and being like, hey, I've been there. I know what it's like. Here's how we're going to get you out, or here's how you can get through it, or here's how you can seek healing and move forward. So I don't know. I think my lemons um, were perfectly placed because I also don't think things happen by accident. But I
Sure.
think my lemons were perfectly placed because of the lemonade that was going to come next. Um, so yeah, that's, if you want me to go deeper, I can go deeper.
That's
Totally up to
totally
you.
up to you. No, that's totally up to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a little bit before Cray, and I know, like, it was well, terrible from that experience. And then, there was what was that huge turning point for you? What kicked Cray off?
So what kicked Cray off was I was pissed off, um, which is a great reason to start a business. I'm
Many of
freaking ticked. I'm over it. It's like what's that song that's like I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired? Like that was it. That's what happened to me. And I felt like in careers, it was just they built on top of each other. And I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day that they were like, when do you know you wanted to start a business? Or why did you know that you were going to be a good entrepreneur? And I said to them, I said that I knew that I was meant to be in charge when I cared more about the company that I worked for as the employee more than the owner.
Mm.
And it happened time and time and time again. And it's something that like I realized that I'm like, I care about whether or not we lose this client. The owner doesn't. I care whether or not this employee has like this mug look on their face every day and they seem like they're really struggling with something. Does nobody else in the office notice? I did. I'm like, there's something here. And what happened was it was COVID. I literally had just changed careers from being a recruiter manager, which we've ripped apart in the past, but I was a recruiting manager. And I literally had just made a drastic career change because I had to for my mental health. And um, it was 60 days before we all knew COVID was going to happen. And this other company, I was the newest employee. I get it. You know what I mean? I don't, being a CEO, I get it now, but I was
Timing was
laid
shit.
off.
Yeah.
Timing was shit. And I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me again. And it felt at the time that it was, and I get corporate. I understand having to protect your company and protect whatever. You got to shut everything off. But like, I felt at the time that it was done in a way that I would never have done to somebody else unless they really wronged me. Like I was literally just being laid off because the PPP stuff was, remember all that crap that we were dealing with. Like they just everybody had to cut the people that weren't absolutely necessary. And I was BD and marketing. You don't need me really, I guess. And I remember it really made me angry. And it felt like the way that it was handled, I then started getting calls from other people and meeting requests from other people. And they're like, where are you? Why aren't you here? And it's because I didn't have access to my calendar because HR obviously shuts everything off.
Right.
And I'm like, now my reputation's getting hit here. And I had that prior to this company. And so from there on, I'm like, you know what? I'm doing my own thing. I'm done. I'm done letting somebody else have this power over me. That's kind of like where I was headed was I'm done letting somebody else have power over me that doesn't really care that much. And I was like, I care a ton and I'm going to create a company that cares a ton in all areas. And now we are where we are.
Here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So I got a couple of things there. So I remember COVID very vividly because I lived through it as a manager and a leader, and it was horrible because there was no fucking answers anywhere, and you had nowhere to turn. And I remember sitting on a conference call, and I won't name it what it was, but we were having a conversation with local companies, and we were being told you need to be prepared to lay off 30% of your people. That's the conversation, and I was like. Okay, well, I don't really know what's going on, but okay, I'm listening, but I don't agree. And then I knew it was wrong because then in the next part of the meeting, we were talking about how to get government funding to recruit people. I said, how in the F do two of these things good? You can't do that and then ask the government to help you find more people. So I immediately left the call. I was very annoyed. And at that point, like I didn't know what to do. And anybody who's in these situations, like I just went around and I built a spreadsheet and I went around and asked every single person, if we would make you get vaccinated, what would your answer or what would your position be? Would you leave? Would you be okay? Would you have more questions? Like I literally asked 127 people or something like that. Because I just needed data of our own people to find out where we stood. Because if the government said it had to happen, what were we looking at and how devastating was it? But like until that point, I felt like I had no control. Mm-hmm. And then I felt once I had that feedback, I was like, okay, well, I'm not prepared to lose all of these people. So I know where my stance has to be in this situation. Now, where I was on either side of the fence didn't really matter at that point. It was like protecting like the people that were there. And it was terrifying. It's
It
very
was.
frustrating. And
It was a
to
really, yeah, it was, sorry, keep going.
no, you're fine. Go ahead. And I was feeling like what you went through, it didn't have to be a checkbox. You're absolutely correct. Like it didn't have to be that way for every situation, but it was also scary.
Yeah, like I know that you obviously have to shut someone's laptop off. It's a part of HR, it's a part of security and IT
Yep.
and whatever. But it's like I wasn't being fired. You know what I mean? I felt like you could have been handled it a little bit better. I was laid
Mhm.
off on 4:30 on a Friday to my exact 60 days. Day 61,
Oh,
my benefits would have gone active.
ew,
Hmm.
that's gross.
Like it's just like I wasn't born yesterday. And
Yeah.
so, but I hear you. And I think that time was horrible. And you know what's crazy is I don't know anything different for my business. I talked about
Yeah.
that in a CEO group that I was in. And I was like, I'm waiting for like the real world again because I've never experienced anything other than
That's
COVID
crazy.
business.
That's crazy.
I know no other time. Like my business was born in COVID and
Yeah.
it's always been remote and it's always been the way that and so I don't know if it ever will go back to what it was before. It doesn't seem like it is. And I think there's a lot of really good things that came from that
Agreed.
happening. But I remember when they were talking about the vaccine stuff and they were talking about all of that being like small businesses, it's going to be mandated. And I had my stances on it and whatever. And that was a tough time because yeah, you're like, I don't know what to do. No one prepares you for any of that. And I think kudos to everyone that had a business going through that period of time because it was something that we had no tools and no skills and no history or anything to pull from to be able to get through that. So the fact that we all, not that we all survived, but that we got through
Mm,
it in any capacity, even if our arms were like hanging off us, like even if we're like barely making it through. But I mean,
yeah.
that's impressive because that it was insane.
It was insane. It was empathy and humility as much as possible that you could possibly muster. Because nobody was
Yeah.
on the same side of the fence, but we had open communication in our leadership group and we all weren't even aligned, but we just openly talked about it the best we could. Like that
Yeah.
was the only
Yeah.
thing you had was each other. Because anything
Mm-hmm.
that was coming from the outside, you didn't even know what was up or down. It was crazy.
Sure. What was, yeah, I hear you. What was real? What was fake? I got you.
So I do want to say, starting a marketing consulting recruiting company in
Mm-hmm.
that, well, marketing specific went super nova in COVID because everybody goes, oh shit, I can't go shake hands and kiss babies anymore at customers. What am I supposed to do? Did you
Mm-hmm.
did you see that supernova trajectory and did you ride that wave?
Marketing's always what I loved. It's what I went to school for. And
Yeah,
so here, this is interesting. So this is how the business model got created. I through the it wasn't fear based, so I don't want to say that, but there is an important thought that I had in my head was that I
sure.
didn't know what this COVID thing was. Marketing and BD always go first if we're getting chopped, right? And I'm like, okay, there's some companies that seem to be doing better, and then there's some that are like they're staying chopped. And when I left the recruiting company and I went to this other firm, I got a bunch of job offers. They were like, if I knew you were looking, we should have
Hmm.
talked. Like I would have, whatever. So I made note of that in my head and was like, okay, this company, that company. So then when I started my own firm, I said, hey, I'm available to work. However, what if, because we don't know what this COVID thing is, you don't know what this COVID thing is. What if you
Ooh,
don't have to
brilliant.
commit to me 100%? What if you don't
That's
have to
brilliant.
commit to me? What if I can't commit to you? You can't commit to me. We don't really know what's going on, but you still need it done.
Right.
And what if I exclusively work with you in this category and I do that with 6, 8, 12 other firms? 6 companies right off the bat jumped on it. So each company would have their exclusive category that I represented. Now, at the time, I also did business development services, I did sales, I did whatever. I don't do that anymore. Um, but I would exclusively represent somebody. And so companies liked it because it also created this ecosystem of sharing. So if I was
Mm,
working with a general contractor, the general contractor wants to know the architect wants to know the general contractor. And then I signed a civil engineering firm. The civil engineering firm wants to know you see how it's jiving. And I had almost every phase of a construction project. And
yeah.
I'm like, and I literally did train. I don't remember what I called it. It was 4 years ago now, but it was kind of like what we do in Vistage. I brought all my clients, all the owners of my clients in a room, and they're all in different phases of the project. I said, let's talk.
You're a facilitator. That was brilliant.
I was a facilitator,
Yeah.
right? In like 6 months or a year into my company, I was like, why don't we get everybody in the same room? And I had some clients that kind of like coached me through. They're like, I think this would be a good idea. We would benefit, and you have a good access to a lot of people. Let's make something like this happen. So I did. I facilitated like a 4 hour long, I don't even, I wish I can remember what I called it, but it was like a 4 hour long meeting that I took all the owners of the companies and we all sat in a room and I prompted them with really difficult questions. Why do we work together? Why do you not work together? What have you done? What could you improve on? I mean, like we really talked about stuff and they enjoyed it and they loved it. So that was cool. But yes, in a sense, marketing, I did see it, but it also was naturally what made the most sense for me to
Sure.
do. So I think it was just this like love match.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Yeah, that had to be one. That had to be one.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? So, very simple, complex question, I think. What does it feel like
Sure.
to own your own company?
Oh gosh. If there was a little chart, you know, the chart that has all the faces that are like happy, sad, right? It's every single feeling at the exact same time. That's what it feels like. Would you agree?
Well, I don't own where I
You,
work, so,
oh my
but
God.
I care.
Practically though.
Yeah, I care deeply. But yeah, you're right. It is all the
It's
emotions.
every feeling at the same time. And then the moment that you're like in one box, something happens and you're like, okay, now I'm feeling that one. And it's just a wave. And I tell
Mm.
other entrepreneurs and new entrepreneurs that all the time. And I just had this guy DM'd me on LinkedIn the other day and he's like, I keep watching your posts. He's like, you're really motivating me. I really think I'm going to jump out and do my own thing. He's like, but I'm just nervous. And I said, hey, what if I told you I'm nervous every day? And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, just do it scared. Like I'm scared all the time.
Mm.
You know, like you're scared all the time in business. Like an entrepreneur is just somebody who like is a little freaking crazy and just really is confident in their ability to solve problems. I really think that's it. That's the only difference between us and other people is like we're just really confident in betting on ourselves and solving problems. And I'm really risky. And but I'm scared all the time. I worry about all the same things that everybody else worry about all the time. It's just all on my back. And so yeah, it's every feeling. It is. It's one day it's happy, it's one day it's sad, it's one day it's worried, it's you know, a big thing comes in, you're stoked, and then something goes wrong and you're like, oh no. And then you have an issue with an employee. So it's navigating so many different feelings all of the time. But I do love it. I do love it. I wrote another post about that before that actually got some backlash on. That was kind of funny. But I wrote a post about being stressed and
Yeah.
how people are like, oh my gosh, you must be so stressed being an entrepreneur and being a CEO, like with all the things you have to do. And I'm like, you're just trading your stress. I'm like, I was stressed as an employee and I'm stressed as an owner. As an employee, I was stressed about like, am I making my deadlines? Is my boss happy? Am I getting to work on time? As an owner, I'm like, do I have enough food to feed all my people? Do I have enough? You know, it's just different stress, but your
Yeah.
stress, you just get to pick which one is the most important to you and which one you feel like you can better navigate.
You know, I don't think I've ever wrapped that concept into backing your problem solving skills and being a bit risky. I would say I don't have the risk portion. I think that's what holds me back from like doing crazy shit.
Sure.
But I totally back myself as a problem solver. Just because
Mm-hmm.
some of the, it's experiences, right? You've been in horrible things and then you've been
Yeah.
in easy things, and the horrible things prep you for everything moving forward. So that yeah, I don't know if I've wrapped my head around that ever, but it makes it very compartmentalized for me, and I can swallow those pieces. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
That was really
Yeah,
helpful.
good. And I think there's people that's why some partnerships work out really, really well, right? Like, is that one
Mm,
person? That's why I'd say me and my
mm,
dad work really well together. Is my dad is an engineer through and through. He is very money oriented, numbers oriented, math, science. Like, that is his jam.
yeah,
Details. Me, I'm like, I see it. I can visualize it. This is where I want to go. And they're like, okay, well, how are we going to do it? You tell me. You know what I mean? Like that, you know, like that's why we work really well together is I'm like, I got the idea. You write the contract. And he's like, okay. Or I'll ask him questions. He's funny. God love him. I'll be like, all right, well, I want to go buy this, but like, you tell me, like, because he does a lot of strategy with our numbers, which I
Yeah.
so need, because I'm like, hey, bank account's full, let's go get it. But he's, there's so much more strategy to how
He's
you need
looking
to
down
manage
the
your
road.
money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's so good at that. And so there was something I wanted to get in contract. I wanted to pay this company to do some work for us. And it was a big bill. And I go to him and I'm like, hey, like, can I buy this? Like, he's like, it's your money, kid. I'm like, I know, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
can it be strategy? And I love how he breaks it down. That's like, this is what we have coming in. This is what we have coming out. This is what this looks. And, he's got pivot tables and Excel. I mean, this man is just,
I would love him.
you would, but things that like, when we first started working together, it was interesting though, because it frustrated me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have 45 minutes to like talk about all of these numbers and stuff. But now we've worked really well at like, okay, I see the value. I see the importance. I do need to know that this is what's happening. And he's also shortened his 45 minutes, like 15 minutes. He's done better as well. But yeah, it's funny, but I don't know how we got there. Yeah.
No, you're good. What is the best part about being a founder?
It's the best and the worst part that you did it by yourself.
Oh.
Like, you did it by yourself. There's
What do you
something
mean by that?
so
Talk me through that.
badass. There's
Agreed.
something so badass that you just did it by yourself. Like, every entrepreneur just like woke up one day and was like, scrub daddy. Do you know what I mean? They just have those ideas. And then like, that kind of happened to me. And I know that it was on my journey. So my whole life, I believe that like, you have a path and a plan and you're supposed to align with it. I believe all of that. So I know that it was a part of my plan, but I just think that part is so cool, is that you just said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go figure it out. But obviously you didn't do it alone either. There was many people behind you supporting you. And some people don't have that, but at a minimum you have an accountant and an attorney and people helping you with those things. But I just think that part is so cool, that what a badass person you are, that you woke up and had this idea. Cause what is it? The average person has like $1 million idea 4 times a year. I think that's what it is.
Oh geez. I never heard that.
Yeah. But I think that I remember hearing that years ago, like, you're driving in your car and you're like, oh, that would be really smart for like pump toothpaste, but then somebody comes up with it. Right. And then you see it later and you're like, oh my God, but you didn't have the
meat behind it. No, I hear you.
Yeah, you didn't have the go do it, which you could have, because you came up with the idea. So the fact that there's people out there that think of pump toothpaste and go, you know what? I'm going to go make some damn pump toothpaste. And they do it. That is so cool, because so many people do not. They get scared. And there's something in us that's like, I know that this is hot, like this flame is hot, but like, I'm going to touch it anyway, because I know how to wrap my hand and I know how to fix it. And I know how, but like, we're not scared to touch it. Like, that's so cool about founders.
Yeah. And the more you talk to that, the more it amazes me that there are people out there that have done this multiple times in their lifetime. That's insanity to me.
The first time's the scariest.
Okay. All right.
The first time is the scariest. I would not be scared to start another business again. I don't even care what it would be. I'm not scared. And maybe that's just exclusively a me thing, but I don't think it is. You figure it out. It's really like, once you do it once, I believe that it's the same thing, just a new product or a new service, new product, new service, new product. It is the same thing. The first time is the scariest, because you have to learn
all the shit.
But now once you get to a certain place, I'll own 12 companies now. I don't care. Like, and I want to coach other people. That's why I'm like so big on mentorship and like, just trust me, this is the worst time. Just go for it. And I tell people this all the time, because I'm like, hey, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to go back and get a job like you have right now. You're in a job right now.
Yeah, that's very true.
It fails and you just go get a job. Okay. So you're back to where you are right now. And at least you tried, and now you don't have to wonder, and now you don't have to see pump toothpaste, so you don't have to see somebody else. You know what I mean? Like,
and you learned a lot.
Yeah, and you learn so much. And I think the self-confidence that comes from entrepreneurship and being a founder is just beautiful too. Like, because there's so much in trusting yourself and your decision making, and like, I got to make a call on this, especially when you're alone in the beginning, when it's like
Yeah.
you and you, and you're like, I got to make a call. And then it works. And you're like, wow. And then another thing comes up, and then you make a call with that, and then you make a call. And the trust that you start having in yourself to be able to make really difficult decisions, but then having the self-awareness to recognize when you really do need to pull somebody else in or get an opinion from
Yeah.
somebody else, that part's important too. But yeah, there's so many positives that I think come from starting your own company and doing your own thing and trusting yourself and betting on yourself to just be like, I can figure this out. I can do it. And if I don't, that's okay. At least I figured it out and I know. And it wasn't for me.
So you said it's the best and worst. What's the worst part of that?
You do it by yourself.
The
It's the
loneliness.
same thing. You do it by yourself. My God, is it lonely? It is lonely. You are alone. And I know this to be fact. And I thought it was mostly me because it's like, I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I'm kind of in an age bracket that's like, I don't really have a lot of other people that are
Mm.
entrepreneurs in my age. So I like really thought I had it the worst, but that's been the like such a beautiful blessing of being in other CEO groups is that like everyone experiences it. Even people that are married, right? They're married and they're like, I can't talk about this with my spouse. Like they don't get it. And or I don't want to talk about it with my family members because, whatever reason, or
It's heavy.
I just, yeah, it's heavy and there's so much pressure. There's so much pressure. I have an unedited reel on my Instagram that I want to put up about this, but it's kind of depressing. So part of me doesn't want to, but I think other CEOs will appreciate it that it is so lonely. Like when you're the night before that, you have to fire somebody at your
Mm.
company.
It sucks.
Sucks. And
Yeah.
then another one is like when and I've been through this with Cray, that you're not doing as well as you have been before, and you start getting stressed about money. And now you start worrying about your employees, and then you start worrying about your employees' families, and then you're like, I love all of them. Which one would I lay off first? I don't want to lay off any of them. That in your head,
Yeah.
and for some people, months on end,
Yeah.
like horrible. The pressure and the decision makings, and you could be wrong and you could be wrong again, and you could make a decision that could impact and I only have 4 employees, which is still, impactful, but
Yeah.
companies that have hundreds of employees, you having to lay off 30% potentially, like that's a lonely place to be the night before,
Yeah.
thinking about having to do that tomorrow. And that's where I'd say the bad part comes in is it is very lonely, and the thoughts that you have and the imposter syndrome that you have, and it's rough.
Yeah.
It's
Pulling
worth
yourself
it, but
out.
it's
How,
rough.
how do you pull yourself out of that?
Um, I would tell you sometimes I almost haven't, which is kind of
Mm.
sad. But I would say I pull myself out of it a couple ways. And I'd say the best way is that you need to remind yourself who you are. And
Mm.
because the enemy likes to lie to you. And I'm very strong in my faith, and I don't know, where anybody else is with that, but I'm very strong in my faith that I believe that that is lies from the enemy and that is lies from the devil. And he wants you to be broke and sad and
Mm.
loveless and no relationships. And he just wants you to be miserable. Right. And you're just sitting here just believing these lies and lies and lies and lies and lies. And you question yourself.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think you need enough good to be counteracting the trash. And maybe it's not well, I mean, I think it's all the devil, but maybe it's your competitor. Maybe it's an employee. Maybe it's a significant other that you're with that isn't uber supportive of your business. And they're just feeding you this head trash. Or even, lucky me, you're on social media and you've got thousands of followers and everybody's got something to say about the fact that I don't look completely perfectly straight at the camera and my nose is a little crooked and your hair looks different than it did the other day. Did you get extensions? Like you get stuff like that and it gets to you. I'm still human. And so I would say you need to have a strong group of support or have a strong faith in something that will remind you who you are and speak truth back against those lies. And that's the best way that you have to pull out of it. You can't do it by yourself because you're going to want to isolate and you're going to want to like whatever. You
Yep.
can't do that, whether it's your friends or your family or your spouse or God or whatever it is to you, energy, whatever it is to you that pulls you and reminds you who the fuck you are,
Hmm.
that's what you need to make sure you're aligned with. Because if not, it's going to suck you.
Yeah, it can be a spiral for sure. No, you're right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, whenever I
Absolutely.
get in that headspace, I keep reminding myself to do not take criticism from people I wouldn't take advice from. So if unless it's someone that I would call up and go, "What do you think about this?" then
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care. Like I have
Yeah.
to keep myself out of that because you are right, especially with social media, having 3, 4 active YouTube channels, everyone has an opinion about
Yeah.
everything. I mean, you can get really good at swallowing people shitting all over whatever you do.
Sure.
And it is
Sure.
a skill. It is a skill to have to learn how to do that.
Well, and I just had a conversation with my therapist, I think it was last week. And she's like, "You're listening to the naysayers, Kristen. You're listening to 3 people out of how many thousands? Literally, like if you think about what a follower is, right? They are
Yeah.
signed up to listen to everything that comes out of your mouth. Like, what? How cool, right?"
It's so
So she's
cool.
like, "You're listening to 3 people." And what I've noticed in the conversations I was having with her is that when it's like 1 or 2 things going wrong, I can handle that. But I would say, and this is maybe something I know that you want to talk about some of my recent posts, but like what's happened and occurred over the last like 6-ish months
Yeah.
was I felt like it was coming from all angles. And that's the only time I've noticed in my life that I feel like I start sinking is that when it's
Sure.
like you've got 6 things versus 1 or 2. I can handle those. Like they're like little mosquitoes. You just take care of them, whatever. Oh,
Yeah.
somebody comments about me not looking at the camera. Okay. You don't even make videos. So when you start looking perfectly at the camera, call me. And other people saying, "You're not good at this." Okay, well then when you try it and you become better than me, send me your service. I will buy from you and I can't wait. But when it's like that and this person and that and this thing
Gotcha.
goes wrong, those are the times that it's really, really hard. So I would say I don't know because I've still struggled to pull myself out of places like that sometimes. I don't know the solution to that. And if anybody else does that's listening to this, I give it to us and give it to the people because that's it feels like an attack almost in a way. It feels like an attack a bit on just everything.
Yeah, it's almost like to your being, right? Because you're at your core, you're trying to do your best, and then it's like all this shit. Let me ask you a question. Was the business doing well and relatively well during that
Sure.
time period, or were you dealing with the stress of maybe that while 6 things and people are coming at you? Do you think that influenced
No,
that at all?
the business was doing well. The business was
Okay.
doing very well, but
Mm.
because we're going through a confidential fun project right now, I've
Okay.
pulled back a bit
Yep.
on obtaining new business. So then I started believing the lie that I wasn't doing well.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah, I
So
get
even though I
really
purposely
stressed.
did it, even though I
Yeah.
purposely did it, I then it somehow flipped in my brain to it's not doing as well when that's not true, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and maybe you were a little, you were confident in your decision, but there was that tiny thing. Well, what if this doesn't go exactly the way I planned, right? And then you just start adding salt into the wound, and you had all this. Yeah, that's interesting. It's so
Yeah.
fascinating because I'm only really, really stressed when we don't have as much work as the guys want or the gals want, and I hate that feeling. I want them to have as much
Mm-hmm.
overtime or as little overtime as they possibly want. It's 43 and a half hours on average that they want per week, and so I
Sure.
want to always have that. And when we don't, I feel it's my job to keep work coming in, right? And we got to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get in that space is when I'm usually like the most vulnerable with like, okay, I get really nitpicky with myself. And it's the added work stress that adds to like the personal brand stress, I think.
Yeah. Well, it does. And then I feel like, and maybe you'll resonate with this, like when you get into those places that maybe you don't have the 43 and a half hours worth of work and maybe you're at like 40 or whatever it is that, whatever that quota is that gets you nervous. I feel like I start getting a little nitpicky of now my employees' work. And I
Same.
start getting like, okay, you guys don't like, and you don't want to be nasty and you don't want to be rude and you don't want to be nitpicky, but at the same time for you to go through the whole process to explain to them why it's really important that we can't lose a client right now, like
Yeah.
you don't want to say it to them, if we lose a couple more clients you're not going to have a job. Like you can't say that as the owner, you know what I mean? You have to always, even through those times, be motivating and leadership
Mm.
and all this. But like sometimes that drives me so nuts that it's like you don't understand
Hmm.
what's going on and everything that happens if we don't really do our best work for this client or we don't do our best job or if we don't do our for the greater good of the whole company. And I know that that's my burden to bear, but I would say that's hard sometimes, that like employees don't share that with you sometimes as much as you having to struggle with that internally.
Yeah, yeah, I heard a great comment around that, your employees will never love or be as passionate, obviously, as the owner founder will ever be. And that I know you understand that. The other piece of that, when I get in headspace with individual employees, I always go to the data to make sure my subjective thoughts aren't out of whack. And then
Sure.
normally it'll either go, whoa, slow your roll, homie. And it's very
Yeah.
easy in the project world because I go to PM data, right? And I can pull it and say, okay,
Sure.
like slow down. Or I'm like, okay, maybe I need to dig into this. And I go to the manager and say, let's make sure we keep an eye on that. But yeah, I usually go to the insight around the data because I don't want to go down a road and be wrong and then feel like a total piece of shit. So
Yeah.
try to subjective. Whenever people bring subjective opinions, are really, AR just gave me a great, during her podcast, she said, whenever someone brings me a problem in my leadership, I always ask 3 questions directly. And the last question was always, what is your solution? And I was like, if I
Mm.
slow myself down every time that happens to ask those, it will stop me from making so many mistakes. I was like, I gotta
Sure.
put that, on my monitor. I gotta ask 3 questions
No,
every
that's
time.
good. No, that's
Yeah.
so good.
So outside of founder, best and worst about being a CEO, because they're quite different.
Mm-hmm. No. Um, I would say managing people is a lot. I
Mm.
love it, and it's also a lot.
You have these
Um,
answers that go both ways.
because it
I
is
know.
like
I know.
you love your people, but oh, your people like I love you. I love you. And it's just, you know what I mean? I would say that. And I would just say that everything's just, I mean, so I guess that somebody could be the founder and they could sell it, right? Or like you don't
Hmm.
have to be both. But when you're both, I would say
Yeah.
if I had a different CEO, like they don't, not everything's on your back like it is of the owner, whoever the owner is, not everything's on your back. But
Yeah.
you still have to, I feel like you very much still have to deal with the people. And I would say, what I would say, here's the answer that I feel like I'm being called to say, is the reputation management. That's something that's been really, really
Ooh.
interesting. And I have thoughts in my head as to why I feel like that's been interesting for me. I think part of that's being a female. Um, but I think people always want to come for your reputation as a female. And I think for some reason,
Interesting.
we're about to take a turn.
No, you're good.
Um, Women are very much so sexualized. They're sexualized. And so I think it's hard when you are the face of a company that you can only control your reputation so much, and you can't control what people say about you, can't control rumors, you can't control how people
Hmm.
interpret things, you can't control any of that. But there's something about how people love to come for either the way a woman looks, the way a woman acts. That, like, there's that Taylor Swift song that's like "The Man." I don't know if you've heard that song. Okay, but she's spitting some truth in that song a bit.
Sure.
She is. Like, if I was a man, I don't think people would pay attention to the way my hair looked as much, or how skinny I am, or if I gained weight, or if I didn't gain weight, or I don't think they'd really care who I'm dating or who I'm not dating, or I don't know that they'd really care that I'm out to dinner with a client and questioning that it's 5:30. Like, would you care if I was a man? I don't know that they would. And those are things that are always going through my brain, is like,
Mm.
I don't go to dinner with clients usually. Like, and I'm so constantly fearful of, like, I don't want, how could that be perceived, or how could that be, but like, you're constantly navigating that. I don't know that men have to think about that. And I
Mm.
have to think about that as a woman. And I have to think about that even when I opened up, which is a blessing and a curse, that I have opened myself up to having all these followers, especially in a local capacity. There's very few places networking that nobody knows who I am. Like,
Mm.
people know who I am when I walk in. So, oh, you're the girl from LinkedIn. Like, I can't tell you how many times, you're the girl from LinkedIn. Sure. Okay. I'm the girl from LinkedIn. And you are the girl from LinkedIn. And people know you, and they make preconceived notions about you from a post online, or from what they saw of you, or maybe they didn't like your outfit and the headshot that you put up. Oh, she should have had more clothes. She should have had less clothes. You'll hear all of that
Mm.
all the time. And that part is very challenging as a female, as a CEO. And then on top of it, trying to not talk about it because then you also don't want to bring too much attention to it, but it's a real thing.
Male and female critique?
Mm-hmm. I was just in an event last week and this guy started talking to one of my employees in a way that I was like, okay, you need to relax. And
Mm.
his first thought to come at me was, oh, sorry, I can't hear you over your nails. When it's like, okay, we can't have a constructive conversation. Your first thought is to comment on somehow the way that I look. I'm at a professional networking event, mind you. Okay. That's his first thought, is to come at my appearance in some way to try to like get me. I don't think that guys do that to each other.
Yeah, I would. I don't think it's an appearance thing. I think,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, a lot of this sounds jealousy to me, extreme.
Well, sure.
Uh, and especially, successful females, I think it's a problem for certain people.
Yeah,
And that could be male and female. I think that rides on both sides of the plane there. But yeah,
sure.
you know, I avoid social mixers like the plague. And
You
you've
don't
known that.
say.
You've invited me to some of this. And most of it's
Mm-hmm.
because I just don't have time for that kind of stuff. I
I've
struggle with
avoided
that
it for a
quite a bit.
while.
And I am certainly ignorant to a lot of things, and I make plenty of mistakes, especially with people. And I've really been trying to be intentional with improving that by reading. I hate reading, but I'm making myself read through book clubs at work. And part of that's just like, it's some of it's just gross, and I just don't have time for. I have other things I'd rather be doing than having to deal with that. And I don't even
Mm-hmm.
have. And when I say deal with it on my sense, like it's very minimal compared to what you're talking about. Most of mine's just age related, or I don't
Yeah.
dress as formal as some people would like, so it's very minimal. But
No, I hear you. And I just recently started getting back into business development because I was like, Kristen, you really took a turn here. Like you were going all sorts of places all the time and now you're doing nothing. And I still need to be present in some capacity. So I've started getting back into it. But the nail comment was like, why the fuck am I here? Like, why did I start doing this again? But you did ask me an interesting question of whether or not it's male or female. And I would say it's both. It's just different. Like,
yeah.
I would say when it comes to females, I'm very passionate about my female girl group that I have. And they are all, I'd say 50% of them are also CEOs. There's another percent of
Mm.
them that are high level managers that are leaders of organizations or whatever. And then I have another group that's just, managers. And I have a very strong group, but the thing about all of us is we're secure. And women, like one of my employees just said it to me today because we were dealing with a situation with a female, and she's like, this is the continuation of the what was the word that she used, pretty much just the thought that women can't work together. Women struggle to work together because of this interaction that's happening. It feels very catty. It feels very competition. It feels very
Mm.
whatever. And I don't know if that's because women just haven't figured out how to work. I don't know where that comes from, but women are catty. They are catty in the workplace. For some reason, they feel like they have to be the top and there's no other. They can't, like, you
Mm.
you are this great at something and it's removing my ability to be great at something, when like, no, there's all this success. You're taking this, I'm taking that, she's taking that, she's like, my amount of success that I'm achieving does not get rid of your ability for success. And there's something about women in the workplace, and it's not all, but there's something about women in the workplace that really struggle with that. They struggle with sharing wins and supporting each other and looking at someone and going, I can cheer you on. And that doesn't mean that I'm not succeeding because you're winning. That's what's weird about women. Now,
Mm.
men, I still think don't know how to navigate women. So I still think, I mean, I don't think men will ever know how to navigate women. We're very complex. But I think they're still struggling to figure out, still even in this day and age, how we fit in, where we fit in, what our roles are, how we're supposed to be doing them. And then I think we kind of like, we're playing that game still. And I think it's just people need to figure that part out. And I mean, males, naturally, I get, more sexualized comments, from men than I would from women typically. But then I also, some of my biggest supporters are men. But I think if you asked me that same question maybe 5 years ago, I would say men are the worst. They're the
Mm,
worst. They're horrible. They're this, they're that. But that was because of experiences that I've dealt with my lemons. That was because of some experiences that I've had in the workplace that was like, it's man's fault. I was a man hater. I was a man hater. I was like, there are no men that are safe. I don't want to support a man. I don't want to work for a man. I'm not going to listen to a man. And that was coming from such a wounded place in me that it
sure.
took a lot of time to figure that out, that that's a me thing. That's not a them. I mean, it was them too, but
Some
it
of them,
was,
yeah.
yeah, some of them, but it's not everyone. Not every, that's not an umbrella statement that all men are bad. I can't work for them. They're out there to do is hurt me. They're holding me back. They don't take me seriously. Like if you speak that language over top of all the men that you work with, I would not have been as successful as I am now. I had to heal that in
Mm,
me, work through it, and then realize, okay, can be your absolute greatest supporters. They can help move mountains for you. They can do all of these things, and women can do the exact same thing too. I've also had some women along my journey that have been really challenging and really difficult, but I would say I have a lot more good ones than I have bad ones. But I'd love to always have
mm.
more. So that's why that group that I would say is kind of still navigating where they fit in and their insecurities. Like I wish there could be more of us that are lifting each other up, because sometimes we're worse to each other than even men are.
Yeah, that's some deep shit there.
It is some deep shit.
It makes me sad, because obviously I don't experience that in that same way, for a multitude of reasons. But um, I've been screamed at by a grown man. I remember it like it's yesterday. And it was in a meeting in front of about 20 people in the middle of Kansas. I still remember it, and it scarred me for sure. But at that
Mm-hmm.
moment, I remember like now that's why nothing a lot doesn't phase me when you're screamed at by a grown person in front of other people,
Sure.
because that's what men do to each other, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
accountability in that world.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, like customers being very upset is still not screaming at me. So
Yeah.
it's all gravy beyond that, right? But that's really horrible because construction is notorious for being so aggressive, and there's just
Mm-hmm.
no reason. I've only yelled 4 times since I've been at SWF, which is almost 6 years here in a couple of days. And I remember
So
those
one
four
time a
times and I hate
year.
myself for that because it's so unnecessary. Well, no, 4 times. So I'll be there for 6 years. So not totally one
Sure.
time a year, but I felt
Mm-hmm.
shitty all the time. But yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
It's
geez.
interesting.
Well, you're human too,
What's your biggest
like,
success?
oh, there's
Yeah,
a little bit of a
I know.
lag, I think. I think there's a little bit of a lag
Oh,
happening. That's okay.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
um, yes, I am human, but it's still one of those things that I try to work on, which is where the reading's coming in to try to, you know, lose the ignorance of that. So we'll see. What is your biggest success so far for Cray and yourself? Is it the hundred group?
Now, I would say it's the inner success.
Mm, dang, nice.
Hmm. It's the inner success. Who cares about, if I never got that, I would have survived. It was cool, but I would have survived. I would say the
Yeah.
biggest success is just the way that you feel about yourself. And I think that goes back to the lemon to lemonades thing, that it's like, I think my story is one that it's a comeback in so many ways. And
Mm,
I've been resurrected in a type of way, I guess you want to say. And I just think that part is the best, is that when you knew that you were 10 and you were going to be successful and you were going to own a business, and for some reason at 10 freaking years old you were like, I'm going to be a millionaire and I'm going to own a business. I was 10, like, what? But then you do it, and then you go through certain things in your life and you're like, I'm never going to let someone make me feel like that again. And then I do it. And
mm,
I never want people that I care about to ever be treated like this again. And I create an environment to which I can protect people from never feeling like that again. I think that is the coolest part, is just the power and the influence and the fact that you can just have this complete switch up of your life, and things that were once stolen from you are now given to you tenfold, 10, 15, 20 years later. That's where it's like, okay, you're on the right path and you're doing the right things and you're helping the right people, and all of those things that you wanted to happen or you didn't want to happen, you now have the power over that. And that's the most successful thing to me. Like, an award is wonderful, and I love getting best marketing company in Central VA or whatever, or top 3, whatever we got. Like, that's all great, but it's that other part that I think is so, so cool, is that, like, you kept your promise to your 10-year-old self, and you kept your promise to your 15-year-old self and your 20-year-old self and your 23-year-old self and your 26-year-old self. And now you're the adult that you so wish that you had. And now you're the manager that you wish that you had. And now that you're the leader that you wish that you had, now that you're the speaker that you wish that you listened to when you were 15, now you're the influencer that you so desperately needed when you were going through XYZ. Now you get to be that. And that, to me, is the successful piece, is that it has nothing, even though it makes me feel good, it has nothing to do with me. And it has everything to do with all the other people that I now have the power and influence to touch. And that's the cool part.
That's a rock star moment. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's sick. I don't know how to back
Cool.
that question up now.
No. Do you want to talk about my post?
See you later.
No, you said you wanted to talk about my post. Yeah. Which one?
I've had a couple hot ones lately. It's actually, it's the one I commented back on where you said you were kind of officially back. Like, you took a hiatus. There was shit going on. And you said you kind of worked through that. And you can get as general or specific as you want, but, like, what did that look like? And how did you say, you know what, this is enough. I'm going to go back to being who I am and what I'm good at.
Yeah. So how do I want to say this? I was dealing with some issues being a business partner. I was dealing with some issues legally. Now, I wasn't in trouble, so that's the best type of legal stuff that there is, but you're still dealing with it. It still holds, hangs over your head. I was dealing with a client, one of my talent clients went off the rails a little bit, which is not fun. I was dealing with some stuff personally. I was dealing with some stuff with my dogs. I was dealing with some stuff with my family, with my friends, with my, all sorts of stuff. And why I stopped on social media, specifically LinkedIn, is because I felt this pressure that everyone looks at me as this big influential person and this big inspiring person, because that's who I like to be. And I couldn't show up like that. I was going to show up. If I typed anything, it was going to be like, it would have been a keyboard warrior. I just would have been ripping, not people apart, but I would have been, it could have made for good television. I don't know, like, it could have been good, but it's not who I wanted to be. And so I really stepped back and isolated myself, because I was like, you need to put your head down and you need to get through some of this shit. And I signed up for some of it, and I put myself through some of it. And so I really needed to put my head down, and I needed to work, and it sucked every amount of extra energy that I had. It sucked every amount of extra headspace that I had to kind of get through everything that I was going through. And then some of them started falling off. So contracts started getting signed, things started getting taken care of, decisions started being made. And instead of those things that were hitting from like every angle, I'm like, all right, I got 4. I can manage 4. So
Sure.
I go, with that 4, you can manage that. What are things that brought you joy that you stopped doing? And one of them is writing, which is why that's a huge service for us at Cray is writing, ghost writing, writing people's social media, writing, just writing, storytelling, and even through video work. I love a video with barely any words, but I'm going to make you feel a certain way once you're done watching it. I love that type of work. And I think it's because I'm such a deep person and I have such deep feelings and emotions and I can connect. And I really am, I've done a lot of work to make sure that I'm self-aware and that I try to approach things, with humility, and I try to approach things with my eyes wide open. And I wasn't there. And so I needed to get back to that to be able to give to the people what I usually give them, but with new experiences now. So I took a little bit of a break, mostly because I wouldn't have had, my mother and father have said, and mostly my mother, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. And let's just say I didn't really have a lot of nice things to say for the last 6 months. I just didn't. And I'm like, you just need to shut up. You need to shut up. And the only people that are going to hear from you are your team and your CEO coach and your therapist. And I think it was just a season, but it was a season that I went through that, my God, now that I'm through it, I'm so thankful that I went through it. I learned so much. I learned so much about business. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about what I value. And I learned so much about, this is the biggest thing that I learned, that yeah, I got the power 100 and the 40 under 40 and the this and all these people want to follow you. All those things are energy sucks, right? There's a lot of people that would love to take your time and take your energy and take your, there's a lot of people that want you, but you need to decide who you want to align yourself with. And what I was doing is I was putting way too much value in other people, other things, other whatever. And I was letting them choose for me. I was letting them tell me who I was. And that's not what Kristen Pucci does. But when I'm getting it from a couple angles,
Yep.
It kind of, you're
You
a
get
little bit
overwhelmed,
more,
yeah. Yep.
yeah, your armor starts getting a little loose and, whatever. But I was letting people tell me who I was. And that's not what I do. And that's not who I am. And I started acting in ways that I was not who I am. And this is not what I do. And this is not what I believe. And this is not who Kristen Pucci is. And, but it's like when people say they get their fire back and they get their spark back, it really opened my eyes to how I'm doing that. And I think I needed to learn so much about that before where I go to next, because I'm going to get more followers. I'm going to get a bigger audience. I'm going to be in front of more people. I'm going to negotiate bigger deals. And I can't carry that toxic mindset with me in my next phase of life. So now that I'm through it, I'm thankful. But in the time, I was like, this ain't it. This ain't it.
Well, huge props for one, getting through it and getting through it with the clarity. Because tell you what, there's a lot of people and a lot of times that you come out of the back of that and you don't have the clarity of what you went through as a positive, and it just drags on with this anchor that you carry for a long, long time. 6 months seems like a long time, but it's really not in the grand scheme of things. So
yeah,
it's pretty freaking
there's
cool.
still but I want to make sure that I'm clear that there still are some people that like, I saw a quote the other day. It was funny. It's like, there's a daddy's girl and a father's daughter. And like a daddy's girl is like, oh, I love my dad. But like a father's daughter is like, I'll crank you in the jaw, And I just think that's funny that like, I think that's, I needed to get people like me in business because I'm like that. You know what I mean? And I won't actually crank you in the jaw, but that's what people really love about me, is that I am this assertive person and I am aggressive and I have this personality, and I'll write some stuff on LinkedIn that'll people go, oh my God, I can't. who's she talking about? But it's not dramatic. It's not what it's just raw. It's just real. It's just honest. I'm speaking my own story. I'm putting my own stuff on the internet. And I don't do it because I want somebody to be uncovered or somebody. I want to do it because there's somebody reading that. And I know that it's true because I get DMs constantly for people saying, thank you so much for posting about that. I am dealing with that constantly. And your post made me feel less alone. This post made me feel that. This post motivated me to do this post. And so I'm back at a place that she's got her swagger back and she's got her spark back. And they tried to take you down and they didn't. And now you're back better than ever. And now you've learned more. So now you're even more powerful. But I had to take a little bit of a hiatus. But I'd be lying that there's some people that if I saw them, I'd be like, I still don't like you.
That dude. That list will keep on forever. Trust me.
Still don't like you. I forgive you, but I won't forget.
That's amazing. Do you ever have any holdback on, I struggled with this for a long time and the whole internet thing and connecting everything, where I think you're very collaborative, or you keep the same name across everything, where I've really segmented certain aspects because I think my gaming stuff is quite toxic and can be quite toxic. And I don't know if I want it to cross over into the real world. Right. Mm-hmm. But I'm leaning more and more to like, it's interesting that someone like me would be so into gaming. So I should be leaning into that type of thing. But do you ever have second thoughts on like how much you put out or not put out?
Yeah, all the time. I get some of my best posts that I've posted on LinkedIn, I'm like, post, but then it goes viral. Like I had one about, I don't remember. The first sentence, it was hot. It was like, don't bring your childhood trauma into the workplace. It was something like that. Yeah. And I mean, it was hot. I was right. And I remember being like, okay. And I have my team go and check it always for like typos and just making sure that there's nothing wrong with it, right? But I only sometimes I'm like, is that too much? Yeah. Did I go a little too far? Sometimes I ask that, but sometimes those are my best posts. You know what I mean? That people are just like, oh my gosh, thank you. Yes, somebody said it. Somebody, wow. Oh my gosh, but all the time I just get nervous. But I think that happens because it is something you should post. I've noticed my like biggest adversity before I hit post or before I hit send is something that's maybe controversial or super vulnerable. And then you just kind of like hold your like hand back from deleting it for like maybe an hour and just see what happens. And so I've done that. And I think, yeah, but no, I do. I second guess myself all the time. I question it all the time. And I put out different content. So I'm kind of like you too, that I do put out different content depending on what platform I'm on. Like my Instagram stuff is very everyday, Kristen,
Sure.
It's very everyday. But I would still say I write the same. I definitely write the same. I have the same voice that will not be lost across any platform. Yeah. You still will go, this is Kristen, but it's much more everyday. I touch a lot more on other things that I'm interested in, kind of like you too. Like there's this whole side of me that's very into, just from my own lemons in my life, I'm very big on mental health and making sure that people are taking care of themselves. And that trickles down through the way I manage and the way I am a friend to people. And I talk about that a ton on my social media, on Instagram. I talk about just more everyday Kristen's a human stuff that I think it would do well. Like I know it would do well on LinkedIn, but I think it's just Instagram's a better spot for it, or TikTok's a better spot for it than LinkedIn. Because I know people want to learn or they want to be taught something. Or engage with something. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. Rub some dirt in it. What does that mean?
You've never heard that saying?
No, I have, but why is it significant to you?
Oh, it's so funny because I was raised by two engineers. Okay. I was raised by two engineers. And my older brother's an engineer, my younger brother's a doctor, and we were a family that was just very data people. I don't know. Like they're not feelers. They're not big feelers, right? Even though they have feelings, but they don't talk about them, right? And so, but I would also say, because I was raised with like some tough love, but also my own personality, I am not a victim person. I don't like victims around me. I don't like hearing about victims. I'm not a victim. There is no victim. You are not a victim. You're not a victim. Okay. I don't care what's happened to you. You're not a victim to your life or victim to other people. You're not a victim. Things can happen to you that are horrible. Absolutely. That should not have happened, but you do not live in that place for the rest of your life. We're going to pick ourselves up and we're going to move on. This is just a small portion of the big story, just a page, just a chapter. That's all that it is. And so when that happened in college, because I wanted to do psychology, but I had this huge plan for it. They're like, well, guidance counseling. And I'm like, I couldn't even picture myself on a couch with someone talking to me about all their problems and me just going, what are you going to do about it? How are we going to solve this here problem? We're not staying here. I can't talk about this for 6 sessions. We're going to need to figure this out. And it's not that I don't have empathy, because I do have empathy. I really care for people. And you could ask my employees. I'm the first one for them to be like, Kristen, I'm overwhelmed. I'm having a bad day. Great. Take the day off, go get a smoothie, go get your nails done. We'll restart again tomorrow. It's not like I'm an avoidant. I'm not. But I don't allow people to stay there. And I think that might just be my impression of how some of that direction that they wanted to push me in psychology. I can't stay there. I'm not that type of person. I'm like no, you are powerful. You are wonderful. You are meant for big things. We're not going to talk about this for 10 sessions. We can talk about it for 5 and then let's make some plans. Let's change. Right. And you can still feel your feelings. And I still want you to feel all those things, but we're meant for big things. Let's go. Let's do them. So that's where the rub some dirt in it is coming from. Is I just knew that I was like, I am not meant for this world. I couldn't do it. No.
That's amazing.
No.
What so talking about marketing, branding, personal branding it's obviously a huge buzzword right now. What advice would you give for expanding people's reach? Like if someone's saying like today because I'm going through this journey right now. I said 2024 is my year. I'm gonna do something about it. I'm not a salesperson. I don't go out on customer calls. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna find my way to bring people to me, which brings people to the company.
Yeah.
What advice would you give people who are saying, I want to start my personal brand journey? This is what you should focus on.
Sure. You want me to speak to like personal branding mostly? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what a lot of people get wrong. This is another reel that I have. Needs to be edited on my Instagram.
Queued up.
People think that their personal brand is what they do, when it's not what you do. It's who you are. And so people can get so hung up on, well, I'm a speaker, I need to talk about speaking, or I'm a CEO, so I need to talk about being a CEO, or I specialize in art and I need to only talk about being an artist. No. There's a million artists. There's a reason why somebody wants your art. There's a reason why somebody wants to hear you speak. There's a reason why somebody wants to watch your video. You need to allow your true, authentic self to come out in your content. You need to do that. That's
scary.
That is scary. So my next thing that I'm going to say is you need to get confident in yourself. If you want to take your stuff to the next level, and I talk about this with my talent clients, right? Because they start with maybe 10,000 followers and then they're like, I'm at 250,000 followers. It's that types of things happen. But I coach them to get them ready for the emotional ramifications of that, being opened up to these other areas of our world, having access to a lot more money, trying to manage that. Let's not become arrogant. Like, it is scary, but you have to, they always say like, and I wish I could remember who it was. She made a really great example of how you should put yourself out online, and you have to do it at the right time. And I think what I just did with those last 6 months is a good example, is that if I was writing while the scar was still open, it's so much easier for you to like stab. And like, she's got a scar. She's got a scar. She's bleeding. There's something wrong with her. Look at her arm. Versus if I wait, and it scabs over, and then I still have a scar, but it's not bleeding anymore. It's healed. You can't come and you can't hurt me with that
Mm.
anymore. So I think if you're someone who wants to be this big personal brand thing, I say go for it. But if you have any areas of weakness, maybe you're really nervous about the way that you look. Maybe it's your nose. Maybe it's your, I mean, obviously go, if you want to go to new nose, you're welcome to do that. But if it's the way you talk, or if you're not super confident in who you are, you either one need to get really comfortable with people are going to rip you apart and just be okay with it, or do some soul searching, do some healing, do some whatever, so that way by the time you do release yourself and put yourself on the internet, no one can come and poke in that scar, and no one can come and hurt you and be like, there's things that people could say about me that I'd be like, and
You
okay,
pulled the M&M on them, throwing out all the
well,
jabs.
yeah. I mean, like, so there's a great interview with Miley Cyrus. I don't know. There's things about Miley Cyrus that I love. And there's an interview about her that they're like, so what about this rumor that people are, she's like, true. And none of it's true. But she's like, what about this rumor? True, 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 true. And that's how I attack it now, is I'm just like, sure,
Whatevs.
whatever.
Mm.
Yeah. But you can't, but I've spent 10 years in therapy. I have gone through CEO coaching, which you're in stuff like that. You're literally opening yourself up to just get dissected. That's literally what you are doing. So you need to go through things like that to be prepared to be open on the internet. If not, you're really going to struggle when people say you're not looking at the camera and your nose is crooked and you're whatever. I know my nose is crooked. Okay. And I know that I don't look directly at the camera. I have severe ADHD. I heard a sound over there and I had to look like, okay, and so you just have to be confident in yourself and comfortable. But yeah, with the personal branding, it's what I said before. It's who you are. It's not
Mm.
what you do. And I've seen my talent clients fail because they get so focused on trying to impersonate and be a fraud and try to appear as this huge speaker and I'm this expert in this. Just freaking talk about it. They'll correlate you to you being an expert because of all your great content and all the stuff you talk about. You don't have to say I'm an expert. Just talk about it. And talk about it in the way that you would talk about it and write in the way that you would write. I know that my stuff is not perfectly grammatically correct. Okay.
Yeah.
But guess what? It reads well and you like it and you kept reading it to learn that it's not grammatically correct. So, okay.
Welcome.
Yeah. You keep reading it. So must be, impacting you somehow. But that's what I would say is I think people really mess that up, and don't. Just be authentic, be yourself, be confident in who you are, and don't apologize for it. You are one of one. Even if you're a twin, you are one of one. And you have a perfect personality, and who you are is exactly who you're supposed to be. And the world needs to experience you, and you're not doing it any justice by being quiet and hiding your talents and your truth and what you want to say. You're not helping anything.
Mm. It's so interesting you say that, because before I started this journey, I started thinking about that stuff, getting self-confidence, thinking about all that and journeys, and everybody's on a different timeline and all that stuff. So I actually looked up a stat, because I said, okay, like how many actual people are on my exact timeline when I was born, at the exact moment, at the exact second? There's 4.3, I believe, babies born every second in the world. So I am only comparable to essentially 4 other people on this planet at this moment, and that's not even true, because the moment you are in the world, you're experiencing everything that's different, right? So we're not even in the same building or anything. I don't even know. But in the sense of timeline, there's only 4 other people who's on the exact same timeline as me. It's just our environments are so different. So we get so wrapped up in comparisons, and social media is terrible for this, because you just look around and everybody's doesn't even, everything's white picket fences and beautiful and wonderful,
Sure.
when it's a shit show.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I started really using my own voice and like just going for it, like it makes a massive difference. But it took me till this year to get to that point where I'm like, okay, I've always wanted to do a podcast. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. If it fails, who gives a shit? At least I'll get to talk to. And most of this is because I hate reading. And I know I can learn things from so many amazing people. So like, this is my reading books. Like, I'm getting my books from all these people I get to talk to. And it's a little selfish, but it's wonderful at the same time.
No, it is good. And I think too, and maybe you can resonate with this, that like, you just got to start. Like, I remember your first 100 videos probably are going to suck. Like, So you either can do one a day and suck for 100 days, or you could try to jam them in as quickly as possible, but just don't have that pressure. Like people do that to themselves, that they're like, I need the best camera and the best
Yes.
video equipment and the best ring lighting and the best whatever. I literally grew to 9,000 followers on LinkedIn just holding my phone like this. I didn't edit one video. Okay. And I own a social media marketing company. I did not edit one video. I was like, boop. All right, let's post about it now. And I think there was something to that was very authentic and just real. And maybe some people were like, oh, those videos aren't really great quality. But like, that wasn't the point. You know what I mean? Like, if you want me to create a commercial, I'll create a damn commercial and it'll look great. But I think that's so great that I think your first video is going to suck and your second video is going to suck. And my first writing's probably going to suck. And maybe my first book will suck and however many reels will suck. But I think you become less vulnerable the more that you do it. You're like, okay. But you have to be careful too. I will say this to people. You need to be very careful getting sucked into that. Well, it didn't do very well, so it must not be good. It didn't get enough likes, so it must not be good. It didn't get enough shares, so it must not be good. Or I don't have enough. You're doing it for the wrong reasons. Of course that's, important. And if people are doing it as their career, they are going to get paid off of the engagement, but you need to do it because somebody out there needs to see it or somebody else out there needs to hear it. And I see it as if I get one DM from a post of it was valuable to me and it was worth me sticking my neck out to do that.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I didn't think 5 years ago when I started doing YouTube, like it was a hobby only. And now I'm building culture videos for our company and literally making fun of myself. So cool. It's going to go to 157 people. And I just don't care because it's important to me to get this across and it's way cheaper for me to do it. And so we're going for it. And they're hilarious and shitty and amazing, but I'm also making fun of myself because I want people to engage with that because they're going to look at me and go, that was a hilarious video. Thank you for that. But they're going to remember the behavior I'm trying to get them to do. I did a safety one. I was wearing my helmet, my glasses. It was ridiculous. I look ridiculous, but that's the point. And I wouldn't be in this place if I just didn't start trying to make a video about whatever it was back then, about my malware. I think it was 5 years ago.
Oh yeah. Hysterical. But I think there's another thing too, is that you're not someone with ego. You're not someone with, and maybe you do secretly, I don't know, but my experiences with you thus far.
My mask is working. I'm just kidding.
Who he's putting out online, his character.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
You even in that right there, like I think when you're like, I don't want to put myself out on the internet because I don't really know how I'm going to be perceived. That's your ego. And that's being worried about, what are people going to take me as? Are people going to like me? Are people going to dislike me? Are they going to have issues with me? You make it all about you.
Yeah, good point.
It's all about me. How are they going to perceive me? Are they going to like me? Are they going to this? Me. And it's like, that's not supposed to be the point. And I think that's where social media went south. And that's why I think now it is all about like, I remember, oh my God, I'm still like this now. I make great money now, right? Okay. But I still see people that work in jobs that I know don't make the money that I make. And they're on vacation here and they're on vacation there and they're on vacation. And I'm like, how are you paying for these vacations? But I know that that's social media. And I feel so bad for like my generation is the last generation to never have a period of their life that they did not experience social media. The Gen Zers after me, I really feel for my employees sometimes that like, I see even in like their money management and what they value because of what is like constantly fed into them. Yes. To have perfect skin and perfect hair and go on these cute little vacations and be the it girl that wakes up in the morning. Nobody wakes up in the morning with their cute little Stanley cup. Okay. Their Stanley little cup. Put it on and it matches their bedspread and they have their cute little candle and they light their candle because it keeps them stress-free with their little avocado toast that's perfectly portioned every morning. And then they do a little workout with their little matching, outfit that was given to them by the company. That is not real. And that is not real because I do it. My clients make videos like those and make money from making those videos. And we're so south that it is all about us and we're in this consuming, like, have you seen, have you seen those videos that they're like the Stanley has a backpack and then it has like a little clip for your lip
No.
gloss, and then if you want a snack it has like a thing on top, and these people are making money because they're selling to 12-year-old girls, 13-year-old girls, whatever it is, that your Stanley needs a friend, and then the friend is sad, so they have a backpack, and then that means this Stanley's upset because it doesn't have a backpack. And that is how south we have gone with social media, because it is all about our ego. We are in such a narcissistic culture of that it's me, I, all about this, all about that. Look how perfect I am. That's why the filters are so dangerous. That I could very easily, with my crooked nose, get a filter that makes my nose perfectly straight. And I could put a filter on that I look like my face is perfectly makeuped, done, and whatever. But you know what? No, because 12-year-old me, I'm doing this for 12-year-old me, and I'm doing this for 15-year-old me, and I'm doing this for 20-year-old me and 25-year-old. That would not have been good for me to see. And I don't want to be that. And I think the world is starving so much for authentic, real connection and real communication and real people. So kudos to you for your videos that you're coming up with, because I guarantee nobody, those 4 people that were born on the same day as you, none of those 4 people are making those videos. But no one's doing that. And your employees are connecting to that because it's real.
Yep. Yeah.
We are so over this.
Back to the personal branding, I think, that authenticity piece is going to reign supreme. One, because AI is taking over and nobody knows what's real anymore. And then you have all this perfect facade that's put into everything. People are really craving human beings talking about real shit that they also care about with their own opinions and just going for it.
Yep.
And so like, now is the time, if you want to dive in and just be yourself, it is the launching pad to do that.
Yeah, I agree. Do it. Start being the person that starts the wave of authenticity. Be the person that goes back to what it used to be, because our world is seeing a shift. We are seeing a shift of, I'm very proud of our society right now in some ways, and others I'm scared to death. But in some ways I'm proud that like, we're questioning a lot more, and we are starving for sourdough bread and the like simple things, right? Yeah. Like we're starving for it, and we're being fed it. We're starting to get fed this stuff again. And I just want to see more people doing that. And I totally agree with you. Now is the time, get into it, and people connect with people as well. That's a huge thing with branding, is that, and just marketing in general, is that unless you have, well, I don't want to go there, but your company brand is powerful.
Yes.
But the personal brand, when a person takes the time to really connect with the followers and with the clients and with the potential employees and all of that, that speaks volumes. That is huge. And that's why I think we've seen such an uptick in that service at our company. Is sure, everybody's expected to have a company page that is active on social media. But what about the owner? What about the upper management? What about the consultant? What about the speaker? What about how powerful for you to be involved, engaged, active on the internet, even if it's not you. But it's your thoughts.
Yep.
It's your concepts. It's your ideas. That's powerful. That's what the next generation needs to see. That's what they want to do. Everybody wants to figure out how to hire young kids and young people right now. How do I get more people? They are very purposely driven. They are very emotional creatures. They are very involved. They don't want to be working for an asshole.
Yep.
Let's show that you're not an asshole online. I guarantee a lot of your hiring issues will be resolved. But we're still hiding behind our company brands, and those are still important. But we need to expand and get more creative. And so that's why I feel like we've seen a lot of success with that.
Yeah. I mean, I had 2 employees on my podcast already, and other employees watching that and learning about things they're passionate about outside of work. Like, it's game changing. And I get lots of comments like, hey, I just watched, Ira's episode about snake breeding. I didn't know he was into that. That was fascinating. And I was like, it was fascinating. You know, like it was a huge connection point to learn something. I knew nothing about that world, but like I love talking to people about their passions because they go into a completely different realm. They go into their
Yeah.
most authentic self because like it just, you don't even think about what you're saying because you're just spewing so much
Well,
positivity
you're a
about.
kid.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
probably you see their child like
Yeah.
joy come
Yeah.
out of this person, which we have to cover up all the time, which is so sad. So that's beautiful that you asked that question because it probably gets people so just excited to live.
Yeah, I have another one coming up with an employee who he races on the weekends, and I can't wait.
Oh,
And he's
cool.
like, "I'm gonna do it in my garage so you can see the car behind me." I'm like, "This is gonna be." I can't wait. Um,
Good.
how do you get ideas? Because I hear this a lot when I was trying to push some of my BD people into doing what I'm doing in 24 with post ideas. It's always, I just don't know what I'm supposed to post. And I have gotten to the point where everything that comes to my head can be a post. I have reached that point. I remember you and I think, had a conversation about that.
Mhm.
And every idea, it's like, oh, well, someone probably needs help with this. And it's just
Mhm.
value, 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 value all the time. So if you
Mhm.
thought about it and you went, that's interesting, there are tons of people who will also think that is interesting. So how do
Oh,
you do that
sure.
yourself?
It's funny. I just have to make a note. It's funny that you say that because I have like post idea, LinkedIn post idea. Like I when I come up with them, I write them down. And
Yeah.
you're exactly correct that like I'm blessed that I've had a long enough career on social media that I can really talk about pretty much whatever I want, and it will be welcomed for the most part because I've put in the grunt work to like get
Yeah.
this audience. Um, what was your question? What did you ask me? Now I'm
How do you come up
lost.
with your ideas?
They just hit me. They just
But
hit
you
me.
but you know
It's
to
just
grab them.
I know to grab them, but a lot of my ideas are just from experiences, just
Mm,
things that I think like for CEOs specifically, or actually, I'm not even going to say that because that's really is my best advice to other people when they're like, I don't know what to write about. I'm like, literally just, and I think I told you to do the same thing maybe, but like just record yourself talking like while you're driving, like just tell me about your day. Who'd you
yeah.
deal with? What problems did you solve? Did you talk to any employees? What was that, interaction like? Did you have a pissed off client? Tell me about that. There's content in there because if you were to create like a case study is one thing, but it's like I'm almost dissecting the case study even further. So it's like, say
Yes.
you have a case study of we'll use construction because it's something I write about all the time. Like, say I'm an owner and I'm writing for you as a construction owner, right? And you had a job that maybe initially went south. And we're writing the story about the job. And we take, sure, the case study says, oh, this was the project, da da da. And here's what we did. And here's what da da da. No, I want to know the emotions and the feelings behind it. I want to know where it went south. I want to know where the owner almost fired you. And then you called him up and you said, Bob, no, you're not going to fire me. I'm going to figure this out. And then we talked about more in the story. And then he talked about the end that you just had your ribbon cutting. And now you and Bob are besties. And Bob's like, this guy's got my back. And you're like, I got Bob's back. That communicates so much more
Mm,
to people online than putting, we just got a 5-star review from da 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 da, which fine. I post about that stuff still for my clients. So I'm not going to say that that's bad. But if you can go deeper and you can write about those things, just think of all the touch points and all the feelings that you just brought somebody through that post. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that they're admitting that a job went bad. Oh my God. Everybody has jobs that go bad.
right.
Okay, now we're talking about how we're addressing it. We're humble. We're vulnerable. We're talking about how we fixed it. Oh my gosh, great. They have problem solving capabilities. These sound like people that like really, they don't hide from problems. They don't, shy away. They then called up Bob and said, Bob, no, we are going to fix this. Boom. If I'm a client considering working with that person, that is great. I want to hear that. And then on top of it, now we're besties. Now we're going to work on more jobs together. Now we're having a ribbon cutting together. Look at the full life cycle of all the feelings and emotions and the stories that you just brought a potential client through. Now that's from a client's perspective. What about an employee, a potential employee's perspective? They're seeing what that company's like by
Through your
witnessing
posts.
that life cycle of how the owner has experiences and does things. Because if that was written very differently, that was like, I told Bob to fuck off. Okay.
You're a
You're
dick.
going to, exactly, but you're going to attract a certain type of person to want to come work with you. There still will be people that will be attracted to that, but they're going to be different. So
Yep.
I think that's what's so powerful about, yeah, you want to write about content, write about your day. Write about experiences, but keep it vague. So that would
Yep.
feels a little bit less like a diary and more like, a public announcement kind of. But just, yeah, write about your day, write about your experiences, write about stuff that you're dealing with internally. Nothing feels better than when you feel less alone. Like if you get it out of you and you put it on the internet and you're prepared to also potentially receive some pushback, that feels great when people are like, oh my gosh, thank you for putting this up here.
Yeah.
Now I don't feel alone because I'm going through the exact same thing. Let's share these stories. Let's learn from each other. But also share our wins and be happy for each other. So that's what I would say. Start recording yourself talking, start writing down on sticky notes. You have a really interesting interaction with a client. Write the story about it from a third person or something like that. Just get started with stories.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Do you have a specific strategy for LinkedIn? I know it's new for some people. I know the younger generation is kind of getting into it. What are three things for someone fresh on LinkedIn? Where would you tell them to go first?
Like how to be successful on it.
Yeah,
Okay. I would say LinkedIn is so beautiful at getting you in front of your target market. Like
agreed.
bang, right away. And you can find the exact person. And I know you can do that on Instagram, but like reels are like I might see it, I might not. I don't know. It's just different. I have a love story with LinkedIn. And I just think you can be very specific about your audience. So I would say that would be a tip that I would have. Say you're somebody that sells cotton candy and that's your business. You can go find all of the potential people that would be buyers and connect with them and interact with them and get them to be, and maybe you don't send them a message right away, but you can at least get them as a follower. And then you could start sharing some content about cotton candy and all of those people will start seeing. So now you're grooming them. Now you're grooming them for the sales process of them seeing your content. Cause it takes God knows how many freaking times for somebody to see something to buy it. At this point, it's probably like, it used to be 9. In like 2012, it used to be 9 and now it's probably like 99. But you're grooming them. That's really what you're doing is you're grooming them to buy your product. So how can I remove objections so I can make the sales process easier? How can I eliminate any questions that somebody may have so my salespeople can make that process easier? So I would say get in there and just really start connecting with people and having fun. Don't just connect with all your buddies. Connect with people you don't know. That is totally okay on LinkedIn. There's a ton of people. I don't know all 11,000 people that follow me. You don't, but maybe one day I will, and maybe I'll meet you somewhere and, whatever. So I would say get active there. And then I would say, start creating content. And LinkedIn is your personal brand too. I think that's what people do wrong sometimes on LinkedIn, and all power to you, but they only post about the company that they work for. And they're only posting about, which is great for a CEO. So I would be like, yeah, employee, keep posting all about my company. But I think you also should be going a little bit further and crafting your personal brand, because if you turn around, which chances are you're going to leave the company that you're at, you're going to go to another company and you're still going to carry all those followers with you. So do we want them to be connected to you, or do they want to be connected to your content that you're posting about your company? So that's why, sure, keep up with that stuff, but maybe also share, if you're a salesperson or a BD person, talk about the sales cycle, talk about sales calls, talk about sales objections, talk about client interactions, case studies, talk about other things as well. So just start getting comfortable with content. Write however you want. People aren't going to sit there and dissect, you know what I mean? Like how you're writing. That. Yeah, write however you want. Who cares? You can swear on LinkedIn. You'll be fine. If that's a part of your brand, that's a part of your brand. Okay, go for it, Those would be my 2 things. And then I would say the third one, learn the algorithm.
Oh.
Yeah, learn it. It's ever changing, so you're never going to get it down to a science, but just use common sense. Don't post at 9:00 at night. Nobody's on there. Don't post on the weekends.
Right.
Nobody cares. Right. So yeah, you want to spend some time just thinking logically with common sense and logic.
Breaks, lunch, when people go on their phone, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. Nobody's working and looking at LinkedIn at 6:00 at night. Nobody's looking for it. And it's not just something for jobs anymore. So, but that's probably what I would tell people is those 3 things. And once you figure it out, then it changes. But there are at least a couple concrete things that will never change, I assume, unless it's bought and they completely change it. But there's probably 10 good points that will always stay the same. And if you got those down, you're golden.
It's great. What would you go back and tell Kristen the day she got fired?
Giddy up. No. I kind of said that as a joke, but I think I would kind of say something like that. I think it'd be like,
rub dirt in it.
Now's your time. Yeah. Like it is time. Like, isn't that in Lion King when it's like, it is time? Yeah. Isn't that what it says? That's going to mess me up. I think it's like, it is time. Or am I thinking of the right movie? I don't know. But that's what I think I would say is like, all right, girl, are we done? We're done dealing with other people. Okay. We're done now. Let's go. Yeah, I think it would just be something like that. Like, you can do it. Cause I wanted to start Cray. It's funny. I've talked about this on a couple podcasts. And maybe I talked about this with you. I don't remember in our first one, but I wanted to start Cray 6-9 months before I actually never did it. And I got a little scaredy cat and I ended up going to get another job. So I actually wanted to start my business right after I left the recruiting company because I had a big commission check that I got. And I was like, great, I can use this as, money, which I didn't really have a lot of startup costs, which was great because it's all digital. I had legal stuff and a laptop, but I did it. So I ended up going and working at that other company in between. But I have in a notebook that my therapist and my counselor that I was talking to, she said, what do you want to do? And I'm like, she's like, write it down. Don't tell me. And it said, I would quit the company, take the money, and start my own business. And I didn't. And I have it dated. Like I got to get it. My, Carolyn, my creative director, she actually bought me a frame because once we move into it, I'm going to renovate my office. I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to frame it because, I think that's just to say that it's okay that it might not be the right time right now, but don't ignore it when the right time comes. Like, don't fight it because like, it was almost that like environment that was like, all right, God's like, let's go. And I was like, I don't know. I'm not ready yet. And then he's like, 3 months later, he's like, all right, every door is closed. Like literally every door is shut except for that one. Are you going to go through that door now? Or are you going to keep trying to like jiggle the handle on another, And I was like, all right, fine. So then I walked through the door. So it's okay too. I do want to give like from my own story, like if you're really considering it and you're like, I just don't know if it's the right time yet, that's okay. Let it marinate. Let it sit there for a little bit. Something will occur. And if it is your path and that's where you're supposed to go, there will be some window, door, vent that will open that you're like, it is time. And you go, awesome. You go do it.
That's freaking awesome. I got through everything. I mean, that was brilliant.
Great.
We got some complete bangers in there. So I always like to end by, is there anything you want to throw out there? Anything you want to promote? Anything you want people to know about?
Sure. So I have kind of hinted and alluded towards it in my social media. Cray is about to have a massive announcement. I've been working crazy behind the scenes for the last couple of months to make some things happen. Pretty much long story short, my pants and our pants are 6 sizes too small. And I've really neglected myself and my company in a sense of our own stuff. So we have some exciting things that are going to be announced soon. Okay. And I would say with that will be other announcements that will make a lot more sense. But yeah, I guess another thing too is if I really do a lot of content like we've talked about today. It's very vulnerable. It's very honest. I will swear. I will. On my Instagram and on LinkedIn. Those two are the ones that I'm like very active on. If you don't really want to hear about everyday stuff or see me, a little bit, I got super dressed up for today, clearly. But like, if you want to see me more like this, and maybe you're used to getting my LinkedIn stuff, head on over to my Instagram because I really just kind of just talk about everyday things and we connect a little bit more. Or if, you want to hear more about my business related stuff, follow me on LinkedIn. But I'm very active and engaged. If you DM me, I do respond, which I think is important. I don't automate messages. That's something that's just close to my heart. I have no judgment if other people do. So that's just another way to connect with me. And if anything today has helped somebody and they want to talk to me about it, then go for it. I'm available.
Same handles on both?
No. On Instagram, it's at Cray Pucci. So KRAEPUCCI.
Okay.
LinkedIn is obviously just my name. Yep.
And Cray is krae.com. Is that correct?
CrayConsulting.com.
Crayconsulting.com. Okay,
Yep.
awesome.
CrayConsulting.com.
Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for
Thank
coming for
you.
round two. I think we got to some real deep stuff. That was really good. Thanks for all the insights. Because I mean, one, not only for the audience, but obviously for myself, because I love learning new things. And if you want to get to 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, you are the person to talk to. So huge props. I'm glad you're back on LinkedIn, throwing out your hot topics. So that's always good to see that. And yeah, just thanks for almost the 2 hours. It was amazing.
Thank you. This was great. I love stuff like this. I'm down for a round. Round three, you can come on mine.
Okay, that's perfect.
That's perfect. Thank you, though. This was so
Okay,
fun. I appreciate it.
thank you.